Welcome to the Lovefly podcast. This is Paul Tizard, and I've been helping nervous flyers for about 25 years. And today's guest is somebody I've known a long time, Sue McKnight. Welcome.
Hi, Paul. Nice to see you.
And you, yeah. So Sue and I crossed paths many years ago when I was running the Virgin Flying Without Fear program. And she's a cracker of a story. And because your success was so amazing, but anyway, Sue used to come along and talk on the courses, and it was very inspiring to people. And I thought it'd be great for this podcast to meet somebody who had a fear of flying such a long time ago, but then to talk about how your journey's developed since then. So I'll shut up. Tell us what's your story, Sue?
Oh, it's great to be able to share my story. I first met you in July the 18th, 2003 it was, back on the Virgin course, but my fear of flying actually stemmed from a lot earlier than that. I never had the opportunity as a child to fly, teenager. We never went to go on a holiday, and I actually didn't fly until my early 30s, early 1990s. I had 3 small children, and we decided as a family it would be a good idea to go to Florida, as you do with a family, holiday of a lifetime and all that.
Yeah, lovely.
That's fine if you like flying. But I soon realised after we booked it and paid for it that actually, for me, getting over there was going to be a massive problem.
So, was your fear like because you'd never been near one? Was that?
I think it was everything. Yeah, because I'd never flown, I'd never been near an aircraft. I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't a great lover of heights. I've never liked lifts. I like to be in control of things, knowing, not in control, but I like to know what's going on.
Yeah,
being a nurse in a busy intensive care unit, you're in control. And suddenly you're sat in a seat in an aircraft and you're not in control. So I went to the bar and had a few drinks before we flew. Now, I'm not a drinker, and the kids, I'm trying to put on a brave face for the children, and we get on board and I realised that this was not for me. I absolutely hated it.
Yeah.
We booked with Virgin just by coincidence. We just felt we liked their brand and the price was good, and that's who we were. And they were absolutely brilliant. They tried their hardest to reassure me, but I just sat there and cried virtually the whole way to America. I was gripping my seat. Every time there was a bump, I felt we were going to fall out the sky, and it just got worse. And then during the holiday, I actually was quite grumpy because on my mind, I had this awful feeling that I had to get on an aeroplane to get home again.
Yeah.
So anyway, I managed to do it. Got home and thought, phew, that's it. Never, ever doing that again. Went down and visited my mother-in-law and said, oh, kids, would you like to go to Florida next year? Because I'll pay for you all to go again, and you can take your auntie with you, who had special needs. So they all going, yeah. And I'm going, no, I'm not going to do it. Anyway, went along with it. And I was even worse that time because I knew what to expect. I knew how horrendous it was. The getting ready to go. My husband said I was a changed person. I was so grumpy and, short with everybody. And it really affected me. Yeah. But I was determined to do it because the children were so excited. Amazing what you do for your kids, isn't it?
It is, that's it.
So got on the aircraft and I was absolutely just horrendous. So
worse than before, would you say?
Worse than before. I was absolutely, the crew realised what a state I was in. And they said to me, when we're airborne or at cruising altitude, we'll come and get you. The pilot said he'd like you to go in the flight deck. This is obviously before when you're allowed to go up on the flight deck.
Yes.
And I think it might have been a 747. I'm not sure. It was a biggish aircraft. So they came and got me and they said, oh, when you've been up to the front with the pilots, you'll feel much better. So I go up there and there was 3 chaps there was an engineer, obviously, and the 2 pilots.
My
And I'm
goodness, this is
thinking,
a long time ago. You're talking
well,
like,
it was early 1990s.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm thinking the two pilots are sat there with a cup of tea, like all relaxed, looking at each other. And the only person that was doing any work was the engineer, and he kept flicking a few switches. And I'm thinking, I'm not so sure that actually this is making me feel any better,
Why was
because
that?
I don't know. I just felt like nobody was in control of this
So
great
you
big
wanted to see
aircraft.
somebody on it, like
I
wrestling
wanted to see somebody flying it, wrestling
with a hat
it.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they all just seemed all terribly relaxed. And
Yes.
I had a good chat with them. And I guess maybe it did make a little bit of difference. But by the time had to return from the holiday, I was back to where I was, and that's it, never flying again. And I got back onto English soil, and I said to my husband, that is it. I'm never putting myself or you guys through this ever again. I'm not going to fly because it's so horrendous. And I didn't fly. And I didn't fly for about 12 years. It's amazing how clever you get at getting round flying. Oh, no, we won't go this way.
What did you do? So you were sort of
people say, oh, yeah, or because obviously we live between Portsmouth and Southampton. So France is quite convenient on a ferry. And my logic was I didn't mind the ferry because I can swim. Oh. So that was never a fear for me on the water. So we got round it, and we just, had great times, but we never went abroad just because that subject was off limits. Wind forward a few years, probably about 12, 13 years, something like that, of avoiding flying. I said to my husband,
let me just ask, actually, I've always wondered, that time, during that sort of 12 years, were your family quite understanding, or was there some sort of subtle pressure? Because you had kids as well, didn't you?
Yeah, it kind of reared its head a few times, but we made an excuse that, funds weren't available, or, or just, you get around. Or my husband was in the Navy, so he was away. So we used to say, oh, well, we're not really sure what he'll be doing. So, you can sort of get around it. I went on a few coach trips because I'm a big Cliff Richard fan, as you know. So I went around Europe on various coach trips for hours on end, sat, cramped in a coach, but never actually set foot on an aircraft. And then I had this idea. I said to my husband, it was our silver wedding. And the following year, I was beginning to think about it as the old romantic that I am. And I said, we could go on a nice cruise from Southampton next year, because being 20 minutes down the road, it would be ideal. Yeah, well, I won't tell you what his reply was, because being in the Royal Navy and having sailed out of the Portsmouth and Southampton area on too many occasions across the Bay of Biscay, he said, you've got to be joking. So, but he said, I would cruise the Caribbean. So I'm thinking, but I've got to get there. So that very night, he said, right, let's go on the internet. And we Googled flying, fear of flying, all the words, flying and fear and all that. And up popped a few courses. And funnily enough, the Virgin Atlantic one was the top of the list. And he said, should we get, and I was ready to do it. I wanted to get over my fear. And I think that's probably the point, I wanted to do it. And I think that's the one big important thing in life, is you yourself want to do it. You don't want to do it for other people. You need to do it for yourself. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So we logged on, and bizarrely, this must have been a Saturday. And I think the following Sunday, the course was on. And I kind of was sort of pulled towards the Virgin course, because I think because they'd been so kind to me on the flights and tried to help me, I felt that maybe they would go above and beyond to try and get me over my fear of flying. Booked the course. I don't know, it was a couple of £100. And my husband said, I'll take you up. So we got the kids looked after, and he said, I'll drive you up for the day and I'll wait for you at the, because I thought, so that was it. And actually it was the 18th of July, 2003. And it was the first Virgin course, I don't know if you remember, that had a flight at the end of the day.
Yes, I do remember, yeah.
You do remember that. And I went up, and he drove me up. We got there really early, and I think the thing that hit me more than anything was the number of people that were there. I
Mm.
expected to maybe be 4 or 5 of us
Yeah.
that were fear of
Yeah.
flying.
Yeah.
But the fact that there was, I don't know, 100, 150 people maybe that all had the same fear. And obviously some were a lot worse, because there was actually a woman being ill in the car park, actually physically being sick at the thought of talking about it. And there was people that didn't seem to have much of a fear. And then I felt I was like somewhere in the middle. As I walked in, I was approached by this reporter who said, "Oh, hello, how are you?" And I said, "Oh," I said, "fine." And we sat down at this table, and he came over and he said, "We'd like to follow your table and do a little mini documentary for ITV. Do you guys mind?" And I said, no. I was so focused on the fear of flying. To be honest, being filmed was insignificant. Normally it would have been a big deal for me, but no, I said, "Yeah, you can follow me." They just followed us throughout the day and made up a little documentary, which I'll tell you about later, because I regret what I said, and I'll tell people why later. I did the course. It was amazing.
I just asked, so that was, I do remember it. I remember you very well. What was in your mind in terms when you're going for the course? Did you think, I'm going to make sure this works for you, or are you kind of 50-50? What was your mindset?
No, I'm one of these people that will give things a go. I was very open-minded when I came. I thought, I'll take it on board. I'll do everything that I'm suggested. I'll listen very carefully, and I'll see how it goes. I didn't put any pressure on myself. And I think that was probably one of the best things that I did. I just sort of thought, I'll see how it goes. If what have I got to lose? If it doesn't work, I'm just not going to fly. But if it works, I had this vision that it was going to change my whole perception in life and change my life, really, which it did. So yes, fronted up, did the course, followed everything, did all the relaxation, and it throughout the day, your emotions are like, one minute you're like, yes, I can do this. The next minute you're thinking, no, I can't. And it's literally comes in waves throughout the day. And I don't think I've ever been so exhausted in all my life that when it finished, it was so emotionally draining. But it was good. We had, different psychology. I think the bit for me, actually, that really tipped the balance in making me enjoy flying was the bit from the pilots of actually finding out how an aircraft flew. I was one of those people that thought it was luck. They sort of tanked down the runway and fingers crossed, and you took off. And I think once I was educated and they told me how an aircraft flies, and it's not luck, it's actually physics, that for me was a big part of helping me. And I think also finding out all about the redundancies on board, that there's 2 or 3 systems, 2 or 3 computers on board and 2 or 3 hydraulic systems and all the sort of backup systems, that nothing's left to chance. That
a lot of people find that very helpful, because you just don't realize it, because even those coaches that you were on, you had one driver, you probably had 2 brake systems, but that's about it, isn't it? Everything else that you've got, it's a single system, so there's lots of single points of failure, which is where commercial aviation doesn't have a single point of failure on anything.
I mean, I had a brilliant team leader, Jane Lewis. She was there.
Yeah, she's great.
Dear Janie, yeah. So she was brilliant. So she was very supportive and just supported us all the way through. As I say, we were interviewed at various points during the day of how we were feeling, and I really didn't know right up until the moment that I stepped foot on that aircraft that I was actually going to get on board. But again, I tried to stay really chilled and not put pressure on myself, and did everything step by step by step. So it was just small steps rather than a massive big step to get over the fear. I took the day in sort of little bits. So then we go and get on board. As you went
toward the aircraft, did you have any anticipatory anxiety or anything like that?
I had heart that was going like, I don't know what my heart rate was, but it was horrendous. I had that awful feeling in my throat that I was going to, my heart was going to come out my mouth.
Yes.
And I can just remember getting on board. And
how did you do that?
I think the support of other people and the team, and the cabin crew, they were so encouraging, and the atmosphere, and you were with other people that were very in a similar situation to you. I know that, and not everybody had the same problems or the same anxieties, but we were all sort of together as a group. And I think it gave me the encouragement to do it. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to do it, because I'm quite a determined person when I want to be. And I did really want to conquer this fear of flying. So despite all the problems of, sweaty palms and sweating and feeling like I was going to be sick, I got on board, and I sat down sort of in an aisle seat, so I couldn't see out the window. And then David Kistrup, he came and said, right, move over. Yeah, move over, he said, sit by the window. And he came and sat next to me, because obviously they were scattered throughout the plane, everybody, the crew and everybody. And yeah, I realised that once we took off, that I could actually enjoy flying. And then we had a little bit of turbulence, which was probably quite good.
Yeah, we booked that. Yeah, we always booked some turbulence.
That, yeah. It's good, turbulence. And yeah, I just felt amazing when I'd flown. I got off that aircraft and I just could have flown into the terminal. Literally, I was just on cloud nine. I don't know. Everything for me just fell into place that day.
Yeah.
I think I had this narrative running through my head when we took off of what had been said, and I just went with that. And I just sort of, I wasn't saying I was relaxed at all. I was quite tense, obviously, still. And I wouldn't have said I loved it, but I did it, and I realised that I could do it. And I felt very positive when I got off that aircraft that day, that I could do it in the future and build on what the day had come, had been. And that was my big turning point in my life, really, as regards travelling.
That's a phenomenal thing you did there. Because when you listen back to it now, because obviously I'm at the front, I can see 100, 150 humans looking at me. You don't always get to understand all the individual journeys that people are on.
I mean, so many times I could have got up and left that day, just got up and thought, I don't have to do this, I'm just going. But I didn't.
Why? What stopped you?
A couple of, the crew, Jane, and she encouraged me to stay for a little bit longer. Just listen for 10 more minutes. There's no pressure. And I think the fact that you guys kept saying there's no pressure to fly, it's up to you. We're not going to sort of handcuff you and drag you onto the flight. It was all done.
That was our last resort.
Yeah. I think it was done. I felt it was being done it was on my terms, and I could do it. Although there was, 100, 150 people, I think everybody felt that we were doing it on our own terms. And for me, that was the thing. So I came off and I thought I've never been so exhausted. After that, I was so glad my husband had driven me up and then drove me home, because it was like a great weight had been lifted off me. But at the same time, I was so exhausted emotionally and physically because it was quite a long day. But it was a great day looking back on it now, and I can still remember things out of it so clearly. It had such an impact on me. And
it's a significant thing, isn't it? So when you finish the course, if 10 is being completely free of fear, and 1 being obviously where you were, where were you by the end of the course?
I mean, at the beginning of the course, I was a 0 or 1. It was awful. Probably the end of the course, I was probably about a 7, a 6.5 or a 7.
Quite a shift then, isn't it?
It was a huge shift, but I wouldn't say that I loved it. I didn't, it was okay. And I thought, I've got enough knowledge, enough experience now to actually build on this myself and see what I can do with it. You've given me all the tools to use. And I thought, I'm going to go. So my husband said, right, where are we going to go? So I said, because obviously our silver wedding wasn't till the following August. So it's like a year away. He said, I really think we need to go somewhere sooner rather than later. So I said, oh, that's a good idea. So we actually booked a week in Malta the following month, because you guys had said, try and fly as soon as possible, you know, don't leave it months on end before you do it again. So just him and I, we booked to go to Malta for a week.
Yeah.
And it was good. Yes. I certainly was a different mindset. If you talk to him about that flight, he said to me, he said halfway through, he said, oh my God, he said, if you're going to be like this every time we fly, he said, next time we fly, we're going to have seats at the opposite end of the aircraft, because I talked non-stop of everything that was happening, every noise, you know, the spoilers and what we were doing and how fast we were going when we were going down the runway, and, you know, and then, oh, in a minute, we're going to have that feeling in our stomach when you get to about 1,000 feet.
Brilliant.
And he just said, oh my God, I can't deal with this every time. I said, look, I'm just talking my way. And I talked the whole way to Malta about what was happening.
Oh, I love that. But that's you internalizing it as well. So we always say, start telling other people and help other people. He obviously didn't need any help, but just talking it through helps it sort of go in a little bit deeper, doesn't it? And that's what you were doing by the sound of it.
Yes, and I was reliving that day of the course of when I flew. So yeah, he was.
Poor bloke.
He did say. So we did that, and yeah, I flew, and it was fine. I wouldn't have said I enjoyed it, but it was okay. And I felt if that was all, you know, I wanted really in life, to just be able to go from A to B and it to be okay.
Yeah.
I still don't like turbulence. Not because I feel that it's dangerous. I certainly don't. And I know it's not at all in the slightest bit dangerous. I just dislike it because it's bumpy. I don't like that sort of feeling, you know, when you do go, it can be a bit bouncy or whatever. I just don't like it. But
let's just pause there. I love that, because a lot of people will think that because they don't like it, it's automatically unsafe. But you've separated those. You've said, I know it's not unsafe, but I just don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, that to me,
that's great.
Yeah, for me, sort of coming on now, having flown quite a bit, that's the only bit of flying I still not keen on at all. Everything else I love. I love taking off, I love landing, I love all the bits in between, but I don't think I'm ever going to love turbulence.
No.
I don't, for me, that's more the motion and the, So yeah,
I like that, Sue, because I think so many people think that they have to love the whole thing. And I don't particularly like turbulence. I don't mind it, but I'm not worried by it. But it's annoying because you can't get up, and they take away all your drinks and stuff. And it's just a pain in the arse, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And sometimes I don't travel car. I don't travel very well. I can get quite car sick. So sometimes I have been in turbulence when I've thought, well, actually, I feel a bit sick. So that's why I don't like it, as opposed to the fact that I'm holding on to the seat, petrified. I'm not at all. I'm totally relaxed. It's just like, I just don't like this particularly.
Brilliant.
But that's fine.
Yeah, it is.
And to be honest, I am one of those people that would like the pilot at the beginning to come on and say, right, okay, we've got an 8-hour flight. Between hours 2 and 3, we're going to have a bit of turbulence, because I like to know, but I know some people don't like that. So
right, yeah, some people want to know, but and then sit there waiting for it, and some just don't want to know. They'd rather not know. Because I think the main thing is knowing that it's safe, isn't it? That's the thing, isn't it? Whether you like it or not, it's another completely different matter.
And my other fear is wanting to go to the loo and not being allowed up. So if I knew we were going to have turbulence for a couple of hours, I could nip to the loo and have a quick wee before the turbulence started.
Yes, it's a strategic wee. That's brilliant. So you said that when you were interviewed by the TV, that you said something. You go, I can't let you get away with that. You said there was something you said that you wish you hadn't said. So what's that then?
Well, at the time, I didn't really realise, because I watched the little mini documentary on ITV. It was over a couple of nights, and I just sort of cringed when I saw myself, what I said and things. Anyway, roll on, I don't know, a few years, when I was actually invited by you guys to come and help at one of the Fear of Flying courses as a team leader, because I think you decided that it was very well having cabin crew and people helping, but it would be nice to have a couple of ex-nervous
Definitely,
flyers.
definitely.
And I'd actually flown a lot, as you know. I'd sent you numerous postcards from various destinations. And yeah, so I came along to help, and I hadn't appreciated it, but you guys had picked up on part of the interview that I'd done. And I'd interviewed in the morning and said, yeah, I was nervous, anxious, and all this. And then they interviewed me immediately after lunch. And I think I said something like, I actually feel worse now than I did when I arrived this morning. And I didn't realize it. Yeah, you were showing that on the course, because obviously you were trying to demonstrate to the people, the delegates that were there, that actually it was fine to actually feel worse halfway through the day. As I said to you, my emotions that day were up and down all day. And I said that, and yeah, and I, to this day, I think, why did I say that? Because as I came and helped,
priceless.
Yes, but as I came and helped on the course, years went past, and of course 2003 was further and further away. And looking at yourself when you're a lot younger and sort of as you are now, it's kind of like, well, it's not good looking at yourself on television anyway, is it? Not that I'm a famous person, but yeah. I sort of cringed. And then they showed, because we did a little bit afterwards, we went and booked our because we didn't actually go on a cruise for our silver wedding. We actually went to Boston, in Boston, Massachusetts, not Boston in the UK, Boston, Massachusetts. We went and booked that, and they followed us to the news agent, and then they got me to dig out a photograph when we got married, which was like 1979. So the whole thing's a bit cringeworthy, really, from my point of view.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Lovely piece for the TV, but also I think what you did has probably helped thousands of people by being really honest and letting them follow you and saying what you said after lunch. Because people used to say, they come on a course, and I'd always used to get asked, does the course work? Which used to drive me crazy, because I used to say, well, I don't know what that means, because the course runs from sort of whatever time to whatever time. We do a bunch of stuff, we do a flight, provided you keep an open mind and you come along and you try out all the stuff, there's no reason why you shouldn't feel significantly better. So whether it works or not, I don't know how you measure that. So one of the things that I know happens, is that people do feel worse during the day, because what you're actually doing is walking head on towards your fear. And so your phrase saying, I actually feel worse than I did this morning, was just perfect. So I would say, without a doubt, you have helped thousands of people, because you've normalized probably all what they were thinking in their head. Half of them in the room are going, oh crap, why did I book this in the first place? I feel awful. What am I doing here? Maybe I'll just stay in the UK, But we had people come over on boats from the US to do the course, because they would, and then flew back and things like that. So it's a massive thing. So don't underestimate how powerful your words were. I know it's cringy for you, but I think it's massively helpful for a lot of people. So thank you.
Oh yeah.
So how many flights have you done since then? I know you keep a record.
200. I've flown since 2003. I have flown. I'm just going to look it up, because I've got to get it right, because I keep a record. I've actually completed 226 flights to date.
Goodness.
That's obviously, I take each holiday as 2 flights, because it's going and coming.
Yeah,
coming
back. Yeah.
And I have included the fear of flying courses that I've helped on, because again, that's a flight. And I think I've helped on about 30 of those over the years, which again was good. It helps. I enjoyed talking to people about my experience, because a lot of them said, oh, well, the trouble is, it's all very well for the crew, because they like flying. They don't understand how we feel. So you could definitely put a different, some of the other people that helped, obviously, that were ex-nervous flyers, you could certainly put a different, you could really empathize with them. And although everybody doesn't have the same fears and anxieties, you know how big a deal it is for them on that day to try and sort this themselves out. So yes, I
think it was massively helpful, and I love the ex-nervous flyers coming along, because you get a chance to reinforce your own sort of stuff, but also helping other people is one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself, but also for them. It's just such a great thing to be able to give back, isn't it? So No,
Oh yeah.
I'm really grateful for you and all the other team leaders that used to give their time. And I think your story is remarkable when you think how bad you were to what you've done, and you don't know how many flights you've done now. That's just mad, isn't it?
Yeah, and I can honestly say, hand on heart, that I love flying now. I, if I, well, before COVID hit, before lockdown and everything, if I didn't have a flight to in hand, so to say, didn't have something booked, I certainly have withdrawal symptoms. They didn't need to necessarily be big fancy trips, but just even simple things like jumping on a plane in Southampton and flying up to see our son who lives in Glasgow. For me, at that point, he's only been up there about 10 years, maybe 11 now. If I hadn't have got over my fear of flying, then it would have been very different. We would have been driving up, I suppose.
And that's a hell of a journey, isn't it?
Whereas now we can jump on a flight and be up there within the hour. Nice. For the weekend, and yeah, we get to see him. And as I say, some of the holidays are bigger deals. I've had some fantastic experiences. I've made it up to the children. They've all come with me, various exotic destinations, and the grandchildren. Yeah. I sort of ran out of people to take for a while. Anybody else want to come flying with mum or grandma? So
I think it's very easy to feel guilty about those, but because you said the words "made it up," I've spoken to lots of people. And the thing is, you did great stuff, and you had experiences, and they had nothing to compare it to. So you're better that you do something that's well within your comfort. And then doing the flights now, you've given them other options. So I think a lot of parents beat themselves up over this, which is understandable. But you've more than made up for that, I think.
Yeah, one thing I did beat myself up about is my children, when we first went to those 2 trips to Florida. My eldest daughter was 6, and my twins, they were like 4.5. And then the following year, they were obviously 7 and about 5.5. Yes. I actually passed the fear of flying on to the eldest one. She picked up on my anxieties and what I was like. And consequently, as she got older, she wouldn't fly. She actually was really bad, to the point where she let me take her daughter to Florida on my own, and she wouldn't go because she wouldn't get on an aircraft. And I said to her, "Oh, you must do the fear of flying course." But again, she wasn't in the mindset to do it.
No.
So a few years later, after I'd taken her daughter on various holidays, and she'd had, when the granddaughter was about 6, my daughter said to me, she said, "Mum, actually," she said, "I think I'm ready to get over my fear of flying. Can you arrange for me to do the course?" So I contacted you and said, "Can I book my daughter on?" And you said, "Yeah." So we got her booked on, and I was a team leader on that day. She wasn't in my team, I hasten to add. She was on a different table, but she actually did the fear of flying course, and it had the same effect on her as it had for me. But she actually gave up the chance to have 2 or 3 holidays to Florida and places with her daughter and myself, because so that's again how this fear has on people, and how much you give up and miss out on.
Definitely.
So
I do remember her coming on the course, because she's like a mini me, wasn't she?
Yes, she's taller than me, but she's so she did the course, and she now regularly flies to the Canary, off to wherever she goes, and doesn't really particularly think about it. So
that's amazing. And it's just great that because we do pass on the fear. Our children look to us for certainty, and so they make sense of the world through us, and it's so easy to pick up this stuff. But I always say to parents that don't worry about them, sort yourself out, and then in turn, hopefully what will happen for you. So for some people, when they've sorted themselves out, the children's fear is gone as well, because they have now an updated version of the parent looking certain. So it's just all about timing and luck, really. So, but I kind of forgotten about your daughter coming on. I've sort of half remembered when you started talking about it. Oh yeah, of course she did, didn't she? So that's amazing. So I would like to ask you, with all your experience now, the question I often ask people at the end of the podcast is just to say, if you had some top tips or some advice you would give to people who aren't where you are but would like to be, what would your advice be?
I would certainly say ask for help, seek out, look on the internet. There's plenty of advice and help out there, like your podcasts, for example, I've been listening to. And I think there's so much out there, and just go with an open mind and accept any help or advice, or listen to as much as you can. And I'm sure if you're at that point in your life, I do believe that you need to want to do it for yourself. I think people before, I used to cringe on my table on the fear of flying courses if I had somebody say, oh, my husband bought me this for a birthday present.
Worst. Yeah.
And I used to think, oh, well, you're not going to succeed because you're not in your mindset that you want to do it for you. It's like anything in life. You have to do it for yourself. It's like losing weight. You have to want to do it for yourself, not for somebody else, not for an event. You have to want to do it for yourself. So I would say, accept all the help, talk to as many people as you can, talk to pilots if you can, crew, anybody that will talk to you. And as I say, I'm more than happy to chat to people. If I don't know if you can put any contact details out there, I'm happy to talk to people.
Yeah,
I love talking about flying. My family aren't so keen on me talking about flying, but I'll talk to anybody that will listen. If they want any tips or whatever. But I just think the other thing is, once you've got over your fear or got to the point where you can fly comfortably at a point, you say, oh, we used to say on the recent courses, you don't have to love it all. And I think that's what probably made me realize that actually not liking turbulence was actually okay. It doesn't mean that I don't like flying. It just means that I don't like turbulence. So I've accepted that I don't like turbulence, but I love flying. So for me, and I think do it regularly as well. I think it's something, it's like anything. I think you need to stay practiced in it. I certainly feel like that. I mean, I had a couple of years. I flew, obviously the last holiday I had was Grenada in 2019. And then I flew just to Scotland last year. And I was thinking, not sure I want to do it. I think more from the COVID point of view than the flying point of view. But I did, because there was front seats at a Cliff Richard concert. There's the carrot dangling. Front row of Cliff Richard. Yeah, that was essential to go. So I did. And just recently, my husband and I have booked, we're going next month, we're going to the Canaries for a week. This is our first little dabble of the COVID to see what it's like. And we've got a Grenada holiday in November that's third time lucky, that's been postponed 3 times with Virgin. And we're on the cusp of booking to go to Nashville in September. I need to speak to somebody that's been there. I want to know what it's like.
Oh, I've been there. It's amazing.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's amazing. Definitely.
I'll have to speak to you off.
Yeah, do that
afterwards.
But I just love the fact that you've got these trips planned. How much you love it now. And for me, one of the really clear distinctions, which I often say to people, you don't have to love flying. The fact you do is great. You don't have to love turbulence. I don't particularly like it. It's all right. I mean, sometimes I'm more like, bring it on, do your worst. Other times it's just an inconvenience. It's just a pain in the butt.
Yeah. I did want to say something that my husband did say. I think he said to you guys, he said, there's one massive disadvantage about me getting over the fear of flying. His bank balance has never been very healthy since.
No.
So that's probably the downside. But
no, well, you're an inspiration, Sue McKnight, and thank you for all the stuff you've done, all the people, the thousands of people that you've helped, and the fact that you're still out there, and that now you're on the podcast. It's going to get lots of people who listen to this and will be very heartened and inspired by your story. So thank you.
Well, hopefully if it just helps 1 or 2 people, it'll be good, because I'd say I like helping people. So, and as I say, I'm more than happy to answer questions if anybody's got any questions that they can put through you or however.
All right, I'll put your details in the on the podcast thing. You might get a few people bombarding you now. That's all right.
That's okay. That's absolutely fine. I've retired, so I have time.
Yeah, you might just regret that.